What's up, snappers? Welcome back to the channel. DDDREWSKY here. Today we're gonna be looking at the brand new card Fenris Wolf to see if he's worth your precious resources. We're gonna be looking at his keys, synergies, counters, and some decks that I brewed for him. But wait, before we do that, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 1,000 subs of the channel. I do weekly reviews of the brand new card in Marvel Snap, so you do not want to miss out. Hit that notification bell right now. Now let's get back into it. Now the question is, who is Fenris Wolf? Let's take a look. So Fenris Wolf in Marvel Snap is a 2-cost, 3-powered card with an activated ability to resurrect the highest powered discarded or destroyed enemy card to your side of this location. So I believe it's a very cool and unique counter to the meta. It's kind of like a proactive card. You know, you can bring back a card from your opponent's side, which is really cool and unique, and it's very powerful, right, in Marvel Snap. All right, now let's take a look at the pros and cons for Fenris Wolf. Let's take a look. So the first pro that I want to talk about is that Fenris is a low cost activator. So now that we have experience with activate cards, we already know that most of the low cost activators are better in Marvel Snap, so that's a huge pro about Fenris Wolf. Another pro about Fenris Wolf is that it's a proactive counter card. It kind of rewards people that, you know, want to counter, you know, a card early on and then bring back like the enemy card onto their side, right? So it's kind of like a proactive tech card. Usually a lot of people save those counter cards for like the end turns, but essentially you could activate Fenris early or counter their other cards early and then bring it back to your side. So another pro about Fenris Wolf is that it brings the enemy card back to a predictable location. It's not like it's a random location. I love that you know which lane Fenris is going to bring back that enemy card. So it's very predictable, which is great for Marvel Snap. Another pro about Fenris Wolf is that the card could be discarded or destroyed. It's great, right? It gives you that flexibility. If you want to go through the discard route or if you want to go through a destroy route, then Fenris Wolf is very flexible in that sense, right? Now let's talk about the cons about Fenris Wolf. Turn 6 is a bit predictable. Like a lot of opponents will know what you're going to be doing because Fenris Wolf is a 2-cost. So I think most of the enemies or opponents will know which lane that card can come back to, or they know what you're doing, right? So it is a bit of predictable play. But you know, maybe you can trick your opponent somehow with Fenris Wolf. Another con about Fenris Wolf is that a turn 5 to 6, if you draw Fenris on those turns, it's a dead draw, right? You can't activate Fenris, you know, during turn 5 or 6. So I would say it's definitely a dead draw. Another con about Fenris Wolf is that it's a low power for a 2-cost card. 3 power is very low for 2 costs, so just be careful of that. Another con is that it's a tough matchup against Destroy. So for example, if you're facing a Destroy matchup, if they're destroying their cards with like Venom or Deathlock, potentially you can be getting those cards back on your side, right? If you accidentally get a card that they've destroyed. So again, it's a huge mismatch opportunity for Fenris. All right, now let's take a look at the synergies and counters for Fenris Wolf. Let's take a look. So the first synergy, an obvious synergy, is Shang-Chi. Of course, if you destroy a card in their lane with Shang-Chi, you can bring it back with Fenris Wolf. Depending on the situation, you can even do Shang-Chi early, right? Usually Shang-Chi is saved for the last turn, but in a sense, you could do Shang-Chi on curve and then bring back whatever enemy card that you've destroyed with Fenris, right? Another synergy is Moon Knight. Moon Knight, I know it's a little bit of RNG with the even cost card from, you know, your opponent's side, but you know, you could hit something good, right? So if you hit something good with Moon Knight, then bring it back with Fenris Wolf and then just reap the rewards, right? Cannonball is another great synergy for Fenris. Again, Cannonball is probably going to be like the last few turns, and then you can bring back whatever card that gets turned into a rock with Fenris Wolf. It's going to be very awesome content right there. Now let's talk about the counters for Fenris Wolf. Red Guardian, of course, is a great counter to all these activate cards. So again, Fenris Wolf is an activate card, so you have to be careful of Red Guardian. So armor is another crazy counter for Fenris Wolf. Again, protecting that lane. The opponent will, like, you know, protect their cards so they can't get destroyed.
So armor is a huge counter. And of course, Cosmo is a great counter to Fenris Wolf as well. You know, again, it's more like, it's kind of like a side counter for Fenris Wolf. It protects against Shang-Chi, for example, or Moon Knight, or even Cannonball.
All right, now let's take a look at the decks that I brewed for Fenris Wolf. I think they're pretty fun and competitive. Let's take a look. So the first deck that we have is called Howling at the Rocks. So the ideal play pattern or ideal objective of this deck is to clog your opponent and then make sure to destroy anything that you see in sight and then bring it back with Fenris Wolf. So on turn 1, Hood, Titania are great picks. Usually you want to save Titania for the later turns, but I'll explain why. Fenris Wolf on curve is great for activate cards, so definitely you want to do turn 2 Fenris Wolf. Hawkeye is a great alternative on turn 2. Her arrows are great, especially the toxic arrow. That's the arrow that you really want, especially for this deck, to clog your opponent's side. Shadow King you want to save obviously for like the later turns. Green Goblin is amazing on turn 3, or you could save Green Goblin on turn 4 with Titania. Those are great combo. If you want to do the combo correctly, you want to do Titania first and then Green Goblin, especially in a lane where they have 2 cards in that lane already. So that will completely fill the opponent's side of their board. Debris is another good turn 3 option as well. Clogging your opponent is great with this deck. You want to clog up as many rocks as possible on their side. Make sure it's very tactical on where you place debris because those rocks are very crucial. Turn 3 is another great option for Viper. If you've done the Hood and you could send over the Hood over to their side, or you could save, you know, Viper for any instances if you get something stuck on your side, right? Viper is a great option for that. Turn 4, you could do Shang-Chi on curve with this deck. It really depends on what you're playing against. To bring back anything from Shang-Chi destroys, you could use Fenris Wolf. Dr. Oct is great for clog as well, pulling a card from their side. If it's too big, Shang-Chi can destroy it. And then again, you can bring it back with Fenris Wolf. Amazing combo right there. Miseries is a fun option if you want to potentially destroy, you know, the Hood or re-trigger Shang-Chi or Shadow King, or even like Dr. Oct. It's kind of like up to you on the situation, but again, be careful that the cards that, you know, re-trigger their effect, they will get destroyed from Misery. Cannonball is a great finisher here as well. Like I mentioned, the synergy. If you destroy a card at the last turn with Cannonball, then you can bring it back with Fenris Wolf. Amazing, amazing finishing moments with Cannonball. So now let's take a look at my second list. So this list is called Good Wolf Stats. It's kind of like a take on Good Stats, but it's kind of my version of it. So the objective of this deck is to throw down good stats, counter the opponent a little bit with the discarding, and again, create disruption for your opponent. So for turn 1, Spireham and Korg are great options to disrupt your opponent. Korg obviously has synergy with Darkhawk in this list. That's why he's in here. Fenris Wolf on curve is great at turn 2. Cassandra Nova is amazing on curve with this list, especially it depends on what you're facing. If you're facing Airsham, you want to do her late. But on curve, usually turn 3 is fine for Cassandra Nova. Mystique you want to save for particularly just Darkhawk. And then for Sage or Black Widow, Sage you probably want to save for the last turn. Black Widow is great on curve, especially now that she's an activate. You can pretty much throw a Widow's Bite to your opponent's hand whenever you want. And, you know, it's a great curve option. Moon Knight is clutch in this deck, especially only hitting Proxima at midnight. It's a great option to disrupt your opponent, especially if you get something really good from Moon Knight, then you can bring it back with Fenris Wolf. Darkhawk synergy, of course, with Korg. Darkhawk is amazing, especially if you're facing against the Airsham list. Sera, again, is amazing card in Marvel Snap. Discounting cards, all the cards in this list would love the discount. And then whatever you discard with Moon Knight, Stature gets crazy amount of value, dropping down to a 1/7. Great synergy right there. So now let's take a look at my third and final list. So this list is called Sera Wolf Control. This is my take on the classic Sera Control, but it has some power built into it. So the ideal goal of this deck is to counter your opponent, lose prio, and just flood and have that burst
of power at the end of the game. So for turn 1, Nova is totally fine, especially depending on the matchup. You have to be careful of potentially a Red Guardian or Armor, for example, but they aren't too popular, so you should be okay. For turn 2, Fenris is great on curve, of course. Since it's an activate, you could throw down Fenris Wolf. Shadow King, you want to save for the later turns as well, just a great counter. Mysterio, you want to save for Hitmonkey, so you probably don't want to run Mysterio on curve on turn 2. So Maximus, you want to save probably for the last turn because you don't want to give your opponent, draw, so be careful of that. For Sage is a great finisher as well, so you want to save her again for the later turns. Hitmonkey, another example for another huge burst of power with Mysterio or any of the other cards that I will mention later. Killmonger is a great finisher depending on what the matchup, but Killmonger has great synergy with Nova. Killmonger destroying the Nova, getting all the power to all the other cards on your board is amazing. Gladiator is another power finish, just like Maximus. You want to play him probably at the later turns, or depending on the matchup, you could use Gladiator to pull out a big card from your opponent's deck, and then you can Shang-Chi it, right? With turn 4. And then you could bring it back with Fenris Wolf, which is amazing synergy right there. Enchantress, super underrated in the meta. If again, depending on what you're facing, if you're facing a heavy ongoing list, then Enchantress will destroy them. And then Sera is a great turn 5, of course, to discount all the cost cards here to potentially either counter your opponent or have that burst of power at the end. So now let's take a look at the spotlights that are featured with Fenris Wolf. Let's take a look. So Fenris Wolf is with Annihilus and Werewolf by Night. All the cards here are Series 5, so if you don't have any of these cards, this is a great time to use your keys. Unfortunately, it's sad to say that Annihilus and Werewolf aren't meta in Marvel Snap. I wish they were. They were great cards at the time when they came out, but they are just gone. No one really plays as them. Annihilus is great, but I wish, he had his old ability sending over rocks, but unfortunately he doesn't do that anymore. And then Werewolf by Night is a lot of time and effort to get him going. There are better alternatives like Sage and other cards that gain a lot of power with a lot less work. Unfortunately, those two cards are passive. For the spotlight variants, I would say Fenris Wolf's variant is amazing. I love this artist. I'm very biased because I'm definitely going to be going after that variant. Annihilus I actually really like a lot. The art style is really cool. I like the energy that's in between his hands. The Werewolf by Night is not really that great, so I would say he's definitely passable. But again, if you have less than 4 keys, definitely be careful with this week. If you really want Fenris Wolf, I would say it's a great use of tokens, but other than that, I think it really depends on your resources, but be careful with this week because there are a lot of misses. All right, now let's take a look at my star ratings for Fenris Wolf. Let's take a look. So I gave Fenris a 4.5 stars for competitive. I think he's going to be very, very good in the meta, especially how prevalent Shang-Chi is, and there's other obviously enablers for Fenris Wolf. So I would say competitive, definitely very good. For fun, I would say 4 stars. It really depends on what you pull onto your side or what you get back from your opponent. I think it could be very, very fun just to see that interaction, right? For flexibility, I give him a 3 stars. I think there is potential for, Fenris technically could be in any deck, right? But I would say eventually Fenris Wolf will definitely be narrowed down eventually. For future changes, I would say 3 stars in case of if it's too busted, right? I would say it's definitely leaning towards the more strong side of release for Fenris Wolf. All right, now let's take a look at my final review of Fenris Wolf. Is he worth a snap or skip? Let's take a look. So I say snap on Fenris Wolf. I think Fenris Wolf is a really cool and a unique ability of a tech card, especially being a proactive tech card. Being able to bring back opponent's card to your side is really cool and unique. I think it's very strong in Marvel Snap. So let me know your thoughts on Fenris Wolf. Is it busted? Is it not strong enough? Are there some synergies? Are there some counters or some decks that I haven't thought of for Fenris Wolf? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs of the channel. I would love for you to be a part of it. And I'll see you guys on the next Snapper Skip. Happy snapping.